Hello students, my name is Niyati Seth and thanks for watching Edupedia word videos. My topic for the presentation is the morphology and the anatomy of frog. This is the 9th section of the chapter Structural Organization in Animals. Students, what do you mean by morphology? Morphology means study of external appearances. And what do you mean by anatomy? Anatomy means the study of internal structure. Okay, so we'll be studying in this presentation about the morphology and the anatomy of frog. Okay, as we know, frog can live both on land and in fresh water, and they belong to the class Amphibia or Phylum-Chordata. The most common species of frog found in India is Ranatigrina. They do not have constant body temperature. That is, their body temperature varies with the temperature of the environment. And such animals are called as cold-blooded animals. And cold-blooded animals are also called as Poikilotherms. You might have also noticed the changes in the color of the frog while they are in grasses and on dry land. They have the ability to change the color to hide them from their enemies. That property is known as camouflage. Okay, what they are called as? They are called as camouflage. This protective coloration is called as mimicry. You may also know that the frog are not seen during peak summer and winter. During this time, they take shelter in deep burrows to protect them from extreme heat and cold. This is called as summer sleep, which we call it as estivation, and the winter sleep, which we call it as hibernation. Okay, I'm again repeating that you may also know that the frogs are not seen during peak summer or winter. During this period, they take shelter in deep burrows to protect them from extreme heat and cold. This is called as summer sleep, which we call it as estivation. And during winters, they live in winter sleep, which we call it as hibernation. Okay, so these were the points for frog, that they do not have constant body temperature. That means their body temperature varies with the temperature of the environment. Second, such animals, they are cold-blooded. They are also known as Poikilotherms. You might have also noticed the change in the color of the frog while they are in grasses or in dry land. They have the ability to change the color to hide them from their enemies. That property is known as camouflage. They also show mimicry as a tool for protection. Okay, and this protective coloration is called as mimicry. Okay, and during summers, the frog live in summer sleep, which we call it as estivation, and during winters, they live in winter sleep, which we call it as hibernation. Okay, now move forward to morphology. Morphology means study of external appearances. Okay, so we'll be studying morphology of frog here. Okay, students, have you ever touched the skin of frog? If yes, you may have noticed the skin is very smooth and slippery due to the presence of mucus. Okay, due to presence of mucus. The skin is always maintained in a moist condition. Okay, it is the skin of a frog is always maintained in a moist condition. That's because of mucus. Okay, the dorsal side or you may say the color of the dorsal side of the body is generally olive green with dark irregular spots. Okay, and the skin on the ventral side is uniformly pale yellow. That means on the dorsal side they have olive green color. This is the olive green color, and on the ventral side they have pale yellow color. Okay. The frog never drinks water but absorb it through the skin, and that's also a reason that its skin is always maintained in moist condition. Okay, the body of a frog is divisible into head and trunk. Okay, a neck and tail are absent in frogs. Okay, a pair of nostrils is present above the mouth, eyes are bulged out and covered by a nictitating membrane. Okay, what is nictitating membrane? We'll be studying. Okay, we got to know that a neck and a tail are completely absent in frog, and the body of a frog is divisible into head and trunk. Above the mouth, a pair of nostril is present. Okay, it is present above the mouth, and eyes are bulged and covered by a nictitating membrane that protects them while in water. Okay, on either side of our eyes, a membranous tymphanum. What they are called as membranous tymphanum. This is membranous tymphanum is there that receives the sound signal. Okay, on either side of the eyes, a membranous tymphanum is there that receives the sound signal. Tymphanum is just like human ears. Okay. Now the forelimb, the hind limb, they help in swimming, walking, leaping and burrowing. Okay, the hind limbs have 5 digits. That digits means you can say that fingers. You can say it fingers. So the hind limbs have 5 digits. Okay. The hind limb end in 5 digit and they are larger and muscular than forelimb that end in 4 digit. That means a forelimb have 4 digits, 4 fingers you can say, and the hind limbs ends in 5 digits. Okay, feet are webbed that help in swimming, and frogs they exhibit sexual dimorphism. Okay. A sexual dimorphism is also seen in frogs. Okay. Male frogs can be distinguished by the presence of the sound producing vocal sacs and also a copulatory pad. Copulatory means that helps in the intercourse. Okay, so male frogs they can be distinguished by the presence of a sound producing vocal sacs and also a copulatory pad on the first digit of the forelimb, which are completely absent in female frogs. Okay, now frog, I have told you that the most common species in India is Ranatigrina. Okay, they are cold-blooded and they are also called as Poikilothermals. Okay, that means their body temperature varies with the temperature of the environment. Such animals are called as cold-blooded or poikilothermals. That means they do not have constant body temperature. Their body temperature varies with the temperature of the environment. And that's why they are known as cold-blooded or poikilotherms. I told you that they change their color while they are in grasses or in the dry land. They have the ability to change the color to hide them from their enemies, and that property is known as camouflage. Now, what is mimicry? Mimicry is a kind of protective coloration. Okay, and they sleep in summers, because you rarely see frogs in summers. Okay, you may also know that frogs are not seen during peak summer and winter. During this period, they take shelter in deep burrows to protect them from extreme heat and cold. This is called as summer sleep. And what is hibernation called as? Winter sleep, to protect from the extreme heat and cold respectively. Frog belongs to the phylum Chordata, class Amphibia, Genus-Rana, and the species is Tigrina. Okay. Now comes, let's see its division one by one. As we know, the skin of the frog is very slippery and smooth due to presence of mucus in it. Okay, due to presence of the mucus in it, the skin of a frog is very smooth and slippery. Okay, and skin is always maintained in a moist condition. The dorsal side color of the body is generally olive green in color, with the dark irregular patches or spots. As you can see, these are irregular spots. This is the dorsal side, and this one is the ventral side. Ventral side color is uniformly pale yellow, and frog never drinks water, but it absorbs it through the skin. Okay. This is the head of the frog. This is the eyes, one pair of eyes. This is the trunk part, forelimb. Forelimb have 4 digits and hind limbs have 5 digits. Remember, I have told you that hind limbs have 5 digits, forelimbs have 4 digits. They help in swimming, walking, leaping and burrowing. The hind limbs, they are larger. These hind limbs, as you can see, in comparison to the forelimbs, they are very larger and muscular than forelimbs. Feet, they have webbed digits that help in swimming. It is seen that frogs, they also exhibit sexual dimorphism. Male frogs have sound-producing vocal sac and a copulatory pad. Copulatory pad, a pad that helps in the intercourse, and copulatory pads, they are present on the first digit of the forelimb. See, this is the forelimb and this is the first digit. So the copulatory pad is present on the forelimb first digit, which are absent in female frogs. So the male frogs can be completely distinguishable from female frogs. Okay. Now let's see function of skin of frog. What are the function of the skin of a frog? As we know that they are very smooth, skin of the frog is very smooth and slippery due to presence of mucus in it. The skin is always maintained in a moist condition. I'm again repeating that the skin of a frog is always maintained in a moist condition. So the function are as follows. First, the skin forms a complete envelope around the body. Okay, around the body. That means it forms a envelope kind of outside the body. It gives protection to the internal soft parts of the body. Of course, like in humans, skin also acts as a first line of defense. That means it provides or it renders protection to the internal soft body parts of the human. Likewise, the skin of frog is also it renders protection to the internal soft parts of the body. Now, what's the third function? Third function, as we know, that their skin is very smooth and slippery due to presence of mucus in it. So, the slimy covering over the epidermis, it protects the body against bacteria and fungi. That means bacteria and fungi, they cannot thrive on such slimy skin covering. Okay. So, it renders protection to the frog from bacteria and fungi. Now, what's the fourth function? Fourth function, as we know that their skin is very smooth and slippery, so they help to escape easily from the grip of enemies. That means enemies cannot attack on them because their skin is very slippery, so they escape out very easily from the grip of the enemies. What's the fifth function? The skin can change its color to some extent in order to match the surroundings and protect the animal from the enemies. I've told you what camouflage is. Remember, students, camouflage is the ability to change the color to hide them from their enemies. You might have also noticed the change in the color of a frog while they are in grasses or in the dry land. They have the ability to change the color to hide them from their enemies, and that is called as camouflage. Okay, and this protective coloration is called as mimicry, and this is how they match the surrounding and protect the animals from the enemies. The frog doesn't drink water, but it absorbs it through skin, and that's also the reason that their skin is always maintained in the moist condition. Now, what's the seventh function? The skin acts as a general sense organ. Remember, students, even humans have 5 sense organs: ear, nose, skin. Likewise, a frog also has a general sense organ, that is skin. So the skin of the frog, it acts as a general sense organ. Okay. It is a chief respiratory organ when the frog is on land. Okay, when the frog is on land, because we very well know that they are amphibians. That means they live both in land as well as in fresh water, because they belong to the class Amphibia of the Phylum-Chordata. So it is a skin is a chief respiratory organ when the frog is on the land. It is the sole respiratory organ when the animal is in water or in the soil. Okay. Now, what's the another function? As we know, the skin of ready to hatch tadpole. Tadpole is a younger stage of frog. So the skin of tadpole secretes an enzyme that softens and partly dissolves the egg membrane to facilitate hatching. That means tadpoles, they are under the envelope. Okay, they are under the envelope, or you can say they are under the egg membrane. So tadpole skin, it secretes an enzyme that softens and partly dissolves the egg membrane, and thus it facilitates hatching. And this is also known as, the skin of the tadpole is also known as ready to hatch, because they secrete an enzyme that softens and partly dissolves the egg membrane to facilitate hatching. Okay. Now, what are the functions of the body part that make up the frog's head? So, the external nares or nostrils, anterior opening for the entry or the exit of air. Okay. these are the nostrils, which are anterior openings for the entry or the exit of air. Then comes esophagus. Esophagus is a kind of a tube that connects the mouth and the stomach in a frog. Then comes tympanic membrane. Tympanic membrane is a kind of you can say that they are like ears, so they receive sound waves. Then comes glottis. Glottis is the opening from the mouth into the respiratory system. Okay. Please note that this tympanic membrane, it covers the cavity of the middle ear on the outside. In case of male, it is seen that there are two vocal sacs at the base of jaws. These are pouches of skin opening on the floor of the mouth. They function as resonator, amplifying the croaking. Croaking is a sound that attracts the female for intercourse. Okay. Now, function of the body part that make up the frog head comes tongue. Tongue is a muscular structure that attached to the front of the mouth, which is extended to catch insects. Insects is a food of frog. And then comes maxillary teeth. Maxillary teeth means the sharp teeth in the maxilla of the frog mouth that function in holding captured prey. Then comes vomerine teeth. Vomerine teeth are the small projections in the top of the frog mouth that function in holding and captured prey. And then comes Eustachian tube opening in the mouth that leads to tube that connect to the middle ear to equalize air pressure. Okay. Now comes the external anatomy of the frog. This is the external anatomy, which are those external nares or the nostril. These are the nostrils. These are eye also come in the external anatomy of the frog. Tympanic membrane, upper arm, forearm, thigh, foot, shank, cloacal opening, lateral folds. So these are the external anatomy. Okay. Now function of the external anatomy of the frog comes nictitating membrane. Nictitating membrane is a transparent part of the frog lower eyelid that moves over the eye to clean it and to protect it. In humans, the upper eyelid moves over the eye, but in case of frog it is just opposite. That means the lower eyelid, it moves over the eye to clean it and to protect it. Okay. Then comes cloacal opening of cloaca through which undigested food, urine, egg and sperms are passed. Eggs and sperm, why? Eggs and sperms because frogs they exhibit sexual dimorphism. Sexual dimorphism is a phenomena in which two sexes are morphologically different. The male is smaller in size. The ventral surface of the trunk is smooth in female but rough in male. The male has two vocal sacs located near the ankles of jaws. The male have nuptial or the copulatory pad in the index finger. Now comes the internal anatomy of the frog. This is the median lobe of a liver. This is the right lobe of the liver, right lung, fat bodies, duodenum, small intestine, urinary bladder, pancreas, large intestine, spleen, gallbladder, left lung, and so the functions of the internal anatomy of a frog will be studying one by one. First comes stomach. Stomach is used to store food and mixes it with the enzyme to begin digestion. And then comes a small intestine. A small intestine is the principal organ of digestion and absorption of digestive food. Then comes duodenum. Duodenum is the anterior front part of the small intestine into which food passes from the stomach. And then comes pancreas that secrete digestive enzyme into the duodenum. Then comes gallbladder that stores bile in it. Now comes large intestine. It is a posterior organ of the digestive system that stores undigested food. Liver, it secretes bile and can help in processing digested food molecules. Then come urinary bladder, the organ that collects and stores urine until released. Then comes fat bodies. These are the masses of fat in the cavity of the body which is needed for hibernating and intercoursing. Then comes a spleen. A spleen, it destroys red blood cells. That's why it is also known as graveyard of RBCs, that is red blood cells. And then comes cloaca, which is an organ through which the products of the frog digestive and urogenital system pass when discharged from the body. Okay. Now comes digestive system. We'll be studying digestive system, respiratory system, nervous system, excretory system, and reproductive system of frog. One by one. Okay. But in this presentation, we'll be studying only the digestive system of frogs. So the body cavity of frog, it accommodates different organ systems such as digestive, circulatory, respiratory, nervous, excretory and reproductive system with well-developed structures and functions. Okay. The digestive system consists of alimentary canal and digestive glands. The alimentary canal is short because frogs are carnivorous and hence the length of the intestine is reduced. The mouth opens into the buccal cavity that opens or that leads into the esophagus through pharynx. Okay. And then esophagus, it is a short tube that opens into the stomach, which in turn continues as an intestine, rectum, and finally opens outside by cloaca. Okay, we'll be studying each one by in detail, but before that, as the food passes through the stomach, duodenum, intestine, the digestion of food is completed. In the intestine, food is absorbed. Undigested solid waste passes through the rectum and digested through the cloaca. Now let's see anatomy or the digestive system. Okay. As I have told you that they consist of alimentary canal and digestive gland. Okay, so how this goes on? First, food is taken into the mouth, then it goes into the buccal cavity, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, intestine, rectum, and finally into the cloaca. See, this is the esophagus. Okay, these are the lungs, gallbladder, this is the stomach, these are the intestine, this is the rectum, and this is finally the cloacal aperture. Okay, so the liver, it secretes bile that is stored in the gallbladder. Pancreas, that produces pancreatic juice that contains digestive enzymes. Food is captured by bilobed tongue. That means the tongue of a frog is bilobed in nature. Okay. This is the liver. This one is the liver that secretes bile that is stored in the gallbladder. This is the gallbladder. Okay. Pancreas, a digestive gland that produces a pancreatic juice that contains digestive enzyme. Food is captured by the bilobed tongue. And how does digestion in frog takes place? Digestion of the food takes place by the action of HCl and gastric juices which are secreted from the walls of the stomach. Partially digested food called chyme is passed from stomach to the first part of the intestine. The duodenum. The first part of the intestine is called as duodenum. Okay. The duodenum, it receives bile from the gallbladder and the pancreatic juice from the pancreas through a common bile duct. And what does bile do? Bile, it emulsifies fat and pancreatic juice that digest carbohydrates and proteins. Final digestion takes place in the intestine. The digested food is absorbed by the numerous finger-like folds in the inner wall of the intestine that are present in the intestine, which we call it as villi or microvilli. The undigested solid waste moves into the rectum. What is this? This is the rectum and passes out through the cloaca. This is the cloacal aperture. Okay, so this is how the digestive system of a frog works. Okay, this I have already taught you, that digestion is taken up place by the HCl and the gastric juices which are secreted from gastric wall, and the partially digested food, which we call it as chyme, is passed from stomach to duodenum. Duodenum, it receives bile and pancreatic juice through a common bile duct. And what does bile do? It emulsifies fat. Pancreatic juice digests carbohydrates and protein. Digestion completes in the intestine. Finger-like villi and microvilli in the intestine absorb digested food. Okay, so this was all about the digestive system of frogs. In the next section of the presentation, we'll be studying about the respiratory system of frogs. How frogs respire on land and in the water by two different methods. That we'll be studying in detail. So till then, stay tuned and keep watching Edupedia word videos.